If there's one country that can be considered the showcase for the global audiobook industry, it's undoubtedly the United States. And for good reason. More than half of Americans have already listened to an audiobook. The format has been growing for 12 consecutive years in the country, and major celebrities, from Hollywood actors to politicians, narrate audiobooks. Not to mention, the industry generates billions in revenue. That's why the Audie Awards, an event organized by the American audiobook industry to recognize the best narrators and productions, is an essential occasion for anyone working in or interested in this field. It encapsulates, showcases, and reflects trends that will shape the entire industry. Not just audiobooks, but the publishing market as a whole. It's already widely accepted that audiobooks will play an increasingly significant role in the publishing ecosystem, a reality that is already well established in many countries. The fact that the world's most important book fairs, such as London, Frankfurt, and Bologna, have been dedicating more space in their programs to audio-related forums is no coincidence. Welcome to Inside the Audie Awards, a podcast written by André Calgaro, based on his column at PublishNews. This episode also features insights from influential figures in the global audiobook market, answering exclusive questions about the industry. This podcast is brought to you by Narratix, a company specializing in audiobook production in multiple languages, including Brazilian Portuguese, Spanish, Italian, and more. Also brought to you by Narrakids, an audio publishing house dedicated to captivating children's stories. The 30th Audie Awards, a milestone edition. The 30th edition of the Audie Awards, held on March 4th in New York City, was remarkable from the very beginning. Hosted by Michele Cobb, Executive Director of the Audio Publishers Association, the organization behind the prestigious Audies, the ceremony took advantage of this historic milestone to honor some of the pioneers of the audiobook industry in the United States, including narrators and professionals from production studios. Some narrators reminisced about the early days when they received printed scripts and pronunciation research was done manually by consulting thick dictionaries. All of this effort ensured that once completed, audiobooks could be distributed on physical media such as CDs or even cassette tapes, long before the boom of digital audio. It's fascinating to reflect on this in an era where artificial intelligence is increasingly involved in the production of spoken content. AI-driven audio companies such as 11 Labs and Deep Zen have been developing various tools specifically for audiobooks. The Audio Publishers Association itself has been discussing how to properly credit AI-narrated audiobooks, with classifications distinguishing synthesized, cloned, or human voices. Today, some audiobook publishers, like Graphic Audio, which won in the original work category, have already started using a label on their covers to highlight productions featuring a full cast of narrators and special effects. Could a label narrated by a human voice soon become a key selling point on audiobook covers? The publishing giant HarperCollins has already announced the production of AI-narrated audiobooks for certain segments of its catalogue, while the Swedish platform Storytel recently released its first AI-written production. Yet despite so many transformations, the Audie Awards remain a stage for celebrating human narration. Now, let's take a closer look at some of the winners of the 2025 edition and explore key trends shaping the industry. Audiobook of the Year. This is the most prestigious award, as it not only recognizes excellence in production and content, but also considers the audiobook's ability to serve as an ambassador for the format to the general public. Judges also evaluate its media presence, marketing strength, and potential to attract new listeners. My name is Barbara, from Penguin Random House Audio. Written and narrated by Barbara Streisand, was the winning production, also taking the award for autobiography memoir. With nearly 50 hours of content, many of the thousands of reviews from listeners on Audible highlight the unique sense of closeness to the author, as if they were in a direct conversation with her. Listen to a sample of this audiobook.
An amiable anteater? That's how I was described at 19 in one of my first reviews as a professional actress. I was in I Can Get It For You Wholesale playing a lovelorn secretary, and I could see the comparison, well, sort of.
This has been a recurring trend in recent editions. In 2022, Finding Me by Viola Davis, and in 2023, Surrender by Bono Vox, both won the top award as autobiographies narrated by their own authors. This type of production fosters the sensation of being alongside someone as they share their life story. Out of the 28 categories in this year's Audie Awards, 9 were won by books either narrated entirely by their authors or featuring their participation in part of the narration. We spoke with Michele Cobb about this trend. Michele, in recent years, the Audiobook of the Year award has often gone to autobiographies narrated by their own authors. Besides creating a sense of closeness to the author, why do you think this type of audiobook is so successful?
The past couple of years, Audiobook of the Year has gone to a celebrity autobiography, which actually makes perfect sense because Audiobook of the Year takes into account sales and marketing as well as the great recording. And we, of course, know that celebrity autobiographies do fantastic when it comes to sales, and they get lots of excellent marketing. So we are looking for an audiobook that has that great power to bring a new listener to the format. And the past couple of years, that has come from those celebrity autobiographies.
Another interesting detail is that among the nominees for this category was Playground, a novel, by Richard Powers, a production from Spotify Audiobooks, marking the streaming giant's first ever Audie Awards nomination. Spotify has been making significant investments in the audiobook sector in recent years, expanding beyond the United States, the first market where it launched its audiobook service. Additionally, the company has been exploring new ways to enhance the listening experience, such as the author page, a type of author profile accessible within the platform, video clips, featuring interviews or behind-the-scenes moments from recording sessions, and Follow Along, a feature that synchronizes illustrations, graphics, and other images from the physical book with the narration. Best Fiction Narrator. Since 2023, the separate categories for Best Male Narrator and Best Female Narrator no longer exist. They have been replaced by Best Fiction Narrator and Best Non-Fiction Narrator. This year, the prestigious award went to Julia Whelan for her performance in The Women by Kristen Hanna and published by Macmillan Audio. Listen to a sample of this title.
Women can be heroes. At that, Frankie felt a kind of reawakening, the emergence of a bold new ambition. I could serve my country, she said to the man whose hand she held.
The long-standing partnership between Whelan and Hanna has already resulted in multiple award nominations, drawing an interesting parallel with the film industry, where certain directors are closely associated with specific actors. Quentin Tarantino and Samuel L. Jackson, Tim Burton and Johnny Depp, etc. The audiobook world follows a similar trend, where certain narrators interpret an author's work so brilliantly that they become intrinsically linked to them. Scott Brick, another top-tier narrator who won this year in the thriller suspense category, for example, has narrated dozens of books by Clive Cussler. Best Non-Fiction Narrator. Many argue that non-fiction is one of the genres that is most vulnerable to synthetic voices, as in theory, it doesn't require the same level of dramatic interpretation as a fiction audiobook, which often involves multiple characters. With current technology, even the best AI voices can be tolerated at most, and only by the least demanding listeners, in passages with dialogue. That may be true, but only to an extent. Take, for instance, the winning audiobook in this category, Candy Darling, Dreamer, Icon Superstar by Cynthia Carr, which tells the life story of Candy Darling, a transgender actress and muse of Andy Warhol. The book, published by Macmillan Audio, was narrated by Justin Vivian Bond, a non-binary artist who has possibly faced similar challenges in their own journey. By bringing Darling's story to life, Bond infused it with a deeply personal resonance, making the audiobook even more powerful. This proves that even in non-fiction, a human voice, beyond just the performance, which in this case was highly praised, adds layers of lived experience and authenticity that enhance an audiobook's impact. Listen to a sample of this audiobook.
She was the beauty queen who didn't belong and never had, never would. By the end of her life, Candy Darling had succeeded in becoming the toast of a certain kind of town. More precisely, the toast of a certain part of a certain kind of town.
Spanish language. Despite the massive growth of the Spanish language audiobook market, this category has been a long-standing one at the Audie Awards. One of the biggest surprises this year, however, was that Me Cantó un Corrido, the winning title, was produced by a young Mexican audio publisher, Editorial, Audiolibre, in a competition almost entirely dominated by large and traditional publishing houses. This achievement is truly remarkable. Listen to a sample of this title.
Jasón llegó al reino de mi padre porque ahí donde me ves soy hija de un rey. O sea, abajo la monarquía, pero es importante ponerte en contexto. También soy nieta de un dios. Pero como dice Cazú, ese dios es hombre y yo por un hombre no me quiebro.
We spoke with Alvaro Ortiz, co-founder and content director at Editorial Audiolibre, about this milestone. Alvaro, Editorial Audiolibre, won an Audie in less than 2 years of existence, in a competition dominated by big publishing houses. What was your strategy to achieve this? And what advice would you give to new audio publishers?
Hello, I'm Alvaro Ortiz from Editorial Audiolibre. I think the overall strategy for audiobook production and publishing is what puts you in the way of winning an Audie or any award. I can tell you right now we're very focused on the kind of titles that we want to publish, and when we sign one that has the potential of becoming a great audiobook, we tailor the production so that we achieve the best audio version possible. In the case of Medea Me Cantó un Corrido, we found that the title needed very personal interpretations and a multicast, so it could become a work of its own. The advice that I can give to anyone who's listening is that you should focus first on the manuscript that you have in your hands, then ask yourself what kind of production could help it be its best audio version, and don't skip the essentials: a carefully selected casting, trusted ears across the recording and post-production steps, and always stay in touch with your authors for feedback or just to get them involved in the process. It's as important as anything else.
One of the leading experts in the Spanish language audiobook market is Javier Celaya, founder of dosdosi.com. We also spoke with him about his perspective on the future of the industry in this language. Javier, the Spanish language spoken content industry has been growing steadily. What are the main factors behind this growth? And how can publishers, whether they already work with Spanish language content or not, take advantage of the opportunities in this expanding market?
Yes, the Spanish language audio industry has grown tremendously in the last 5 years. 5 years ago, there were less than, I will say, 5,000 titles in the Spanish language. And now, by the end of this year, we'll probably reach 45,000 Spanish audiobooks available in the Spanish markets, Spain, Latin America, and the Hispanic US. The main factors behind this growth are basically threefold. On the first hand, the streaming platforms like Audible, Storytel, Podimo, and others in the market have invested a lot of money producing Spanish titles as well as creating the category, doing a lot of marketing campaigns to embrace audiobooks among the Spanish-speaking population. And the second factor has been also many publishers, big publishers and mid-sized publishers like Planeta, Penguin Random House, Urano, Anagrama, HarperCollins, among others like Fondo Cultura Económica, that have also invested in producing Spanish audiobooks. And as I said, in the last 5 to 7 years, we basically have multiplied by 10 the number of titles available in the market. And the third factor has been that the Spanish population has engaged in audio listening, mainly podcasts, but when they have discovered audiobooks, they have complemented both formats, audiobooks and podcasting. Spanish is the third global language after English and German, not taking into consideration Chinese, meaning that those two other languages, English language markets as well as German-speaking markets, have been in the forefront of the audio industry. And now there are new emerging languages like Spanish, which is a global language. More than 500 million people speak Spanish worldwide. That allows publishers, not only from Spain and Latin America, but also publishers in the US as well as other parts of Europe, to invest in Spanish language content to basically create a new revenue stream beyond their domestic language. So as a new trend, we see more and more international publishers creating multi-language catalogs as part of their go-to-market strategy beyond their domestic language. Their domestic language could be the US, or it could be the UK, it could be German, it could be the Nordics here in Europe. And once they have covered those markets, they are investing in global languages like Spanish or Portuguese or Arabic to go to market with more titles in different languages to complement their domestic language. This is a trend that we'll see in the next 5 years grow and grow in different markets and different languages. The audiobook industry is becoming more and more global every single year. There are about 1.5 million audiobooks available worldwide in different languages, mainly English, German, Spanish, French, and Italian. If we break down the 1.5 million number, basically 1 million titles belong to the English language markets, about 250,000 are German-speaking language, and then the rest are Spanish with close to 50,000, French close to 25,000 titles, Italian with 10,000, Portuguese with another 10,000, and so on. What we're seeing is that audiobook is becoming more global because there's more people listening to audiobooks in different languages worldwide. Not only in their domestic market, but we're seeing, like, for example, the consumption of English in Germany or in the Nordics or in other markets as a complement to the domestic language.
The most awarded publishers and future trends. The most awarded publishers in this year's edition were Penguin Random House Audio and Macmillan Audio, with a total of 13 winning titles, nearly half of all categories, a number very similar to 2024. Other standout audio publishers, also well established in the industry, included Hachette Audio and Harper Audio. What new trends in the audiobook market might shape the 2026 awards? To explore this, we spoke with Nathan Hull, Chief Strategy Officer at Beat Technology, a key figure in global audiobook events. Nathan, the audiobook industry has changed a lot in recent years, with new technologies, new players, and discussions about new formats. What other changes do you think we will see in the near future?
Firstly, I think the growth in the format of audio will continue to grow as a habit generally, but I think it'll be interesting to see how this is really reflected in publishing numbers, as not all of the listening will come from publisher-measured channels. And by that, I mean things like studios and platforms themselves will create content directly more than they are already and will generate a different kind of listener that may not be measured in terms of those growth numbers. A few other things I think will take place. Spotify is, of course, going to move into more markets, particularly within Europe during 2025. And I think that's going to prompt kind of further content and marketing battles, particularly between them and Audible. I expect some more consolidation in the audio world more generally. Some companies will get bought and swallowed. Other ones will fall by the wayside. But this happens every year. In terms of new markets, I think there's actually a huge interest in Brazilian Portuguese, particularly from the Americans at the moment. So I imagine more and more growth and focus on that language group. And then another language that I've been speaking about for a while that I really think will start to see the first kind of green shoots in 2025 will be Arabic. The opportunity is enormous. And again, lots and lots of people are starting to think about it and trying to understand the MENA region and how to go about this and whether they record locally or record in their own markets. But there's a huge interest there and in Arabic literature. And then, of course, AI is going to have a huge impact. I think in a positive way, it's going to spur a more rapid growth in small language markets where the consumer's ear isn't quite as discerning as, say, the European ear or the Americas or some parts of South America, where the listener doesn't necessarily need to hear a true human voice. So that could really accelerate some growth there, which would be beneficial. I think more generally, AI is going to accelerate catalog growth in all languages anyway. But I think various platforms and retailers will then start to use AI voices and the method used to create them as another means of control upon where certain content appears. We already know that not all platforms will take AI voice recordings, and some will, but only if they've generated it themselves. A major couple of disruptors I predict for the next year or so will be AI companies creating their own platforms. We already know this is starting to happen, where recordings won't even be needed. So they won't be ingesting content from audiobook publishers or book publishers per se. They will simply generate the content directly and live from the text. So all in all, I think it's going to be a really exciting period over the next kind of year to 18 months. The growth will continue, but I think it's incumbent upon book publishers to make sure that they continue to be part of that growth and don't let others accelerate past them and eat into that opportunity.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Inside the Audie Awards. If you're looking for audiobook production and spoken word content, check out Narratix, a company specializing in high-quality audio productions in multiple languages. And if you're looking for engaging children's stories, explore Narrakids, an audio publisher dedicated to bringing imaginative stories to life. This podcast was narrated by David Gardner, written by André Calgaro, edited and sound designed by Guilherme Barata. Thank you for listening, and see you in the next episode.